Hello, good morning everyone. Today we are going to review one of the most important features on Marker Plus, which is the crossover detection. Let's review first on Ninja 7 on the left chart the different type of crossovers that we may be interested in check. For example, we may have two lines, let's say something fast and something slow. For example, a simple moving average and an exponential moving average. And we want to detect these crossovers. To detect these signals, we need to copy each one of the lines and then use the crossover indicator. To copy the line, we use the copy indicator. We assign a name. For example, this is an exponential moving average of 50, so let's use the name EMA 50. And on input series, we select the indicator with the corresponding settings. So we choose indicators, EMA and 50. We don't have to select the plot because this indicator has only one line. We can also apply a vertical offset, so we can copy the line above or below, and we can also shift to the left. And now we get the copied line at the bottom. We can move it over the main chart, so both lines are overlapping one each other. So we can delete the original line because we now have the copied version. Now we copy another line, an SMA of 83. We use the copy indicator, assign a name, for example SMA 83. We can place any name, and on input series we select the indicator with the settings. SMA 83. I will choose a different color so we can identify. If we overlap this on the main chart, now the green and the red line are one over the other. So now we can remove the original indicators because we already have the copied versions. Now that we have both lines copied, then we can use the crossover indicator. And on the line number 1, we place the name of the first line that we copied, EMA 50. And for the second name, we type the name of the second line, SMA 83. The result is the difference between EMA 50 minus SMA 83. This is the distance between both lines. And we specify if we want to show or not the histogram with the difference between both lines. And we can see that at the crossover, that distance is 0. The place where the separation is biggest is when the histogram has the biggest value. If we don't want to see the histogram, we can place the show histogram set to false and avoid having an extra panel using the same panel as the price. So now we only get the signals. At the exact moment when the lines are crossing. Another type of crossover is between one line and a constant value. Let's say, for example, I will remove one of the lines, the blue line. Let's say that we want to check the crossover between a fixed value, 46.10. So we need to use the constant indicator. We assign a name, we assign a value, 46.1, and for the name we can type anything, for example 4610 or whatever we prefer. And now we can see that we get a constant line. And now if we want to detect the crossovers between the red line and the horizontal line, the process is the same. We use the crossover indicator between the red line, which name is SMA83, against the constant, which name is 4610. So on the crossover indicator we type line 1 as SMA83 and line number 2 4610. And now we get the signals at the crossover of the line with the constant value. We can also paint the histogram so we can get the distance between the line and the constant value. So we set show histogram to true and also paint on a new panel. And here we can see the histogram is 0 at the crossover points. And another option is to verify when the price crosses with something else, like a line, for example this crossover, a line against a price or against a constant line. Let's do some examples. We need to copy first the price. The price is formed by 4 possible values: the high, the low, the open and the close. So we need to choose one of them and copy. We select the copy indicator, assign a name, for example price, and on input series we select what we want to copy. The default value is close, but we can select anything. Let's use the close, and I don't want to paint a line over the close, so we disable the painting of the line and also using another panel. So we hide the panel and hide the line. On this variable we have now the close of each bar. So now if we, on the crossover indicator, we check against precio, price and 4610, then we get signals when the price crosses above or below this constant value. Here the close of the bar is below the horizontal line, same here, and we are talking about the close. On this bar the close is above, so we always are looking at the close of each bar. We could be also looking at the low or the high of the bar. If instead of that we want to check the crossover of the price against the line, then we can look at price against the name of the line, SMA83. So now we have the signals when the close of the bar crosses the other side of the red line. These signals can be painted at bar close, so only looking at the close of the bar when it is finished, we paint a signal. Or it is also possible on intrabar mode. We can select that mode on the input parameters. We set calculate on bar close set to false, and using false on intrabar mode we get a signal painted each time the current price crosses one side or the other. That means that we may have several signals on the same bar. Depending on the setup that we are looking for, maybe we need one or another method. This is also valid for signals on crossovers of anything on the secondary panel. Let's say, for example, a MACD, and on the MACD we have two lines and the histogram. Let's say that we want to check the crossover between the MACD and its average. The difference is the difference between both lines. To detect the crossovers between the MACD and the average, again we need to copy each one of the lines. We use the copy indicator, assign a name, MACD for example. On input series we select the indicator, MACD, and this indicator has more than one line, so we need to select which one of those lines we want to copy. On this example it is the MACD. Select the parameters and we use the copy again. Now to select the other line, the average. Assign a name, for example ABG. On input series we use the MACD indicator with the same settings, but selecting another line, the average. And we get both lines. We can change the color of the average so we can identify them, overlap one each other, so we can see that the crossovers are the same on the MACD than on the copied lines. Now if we want to signal the crossovers, the procedure is the same. We use the crossover indicator. On the line number 1 we type the name of the MACD. On the name of the line number 2 the ABG, and the result is the difference between MACD and average. We can type anything, and then we select if we want to paint crossover to the upside or to the downside. We set both. We get the histogram that on this example, on the MACD, the histogram is the same as the MACD difference because it is the difference between both lines. And now we get the signals. Each time there is a crossover, we get a signal. Something similar, detecting the crossover of a line against a constant value will be on an indicator where we look for an overbought or oversold. Let's say, for example, stochastics. On the stochastics we have overbought and oversold levels. Let's say we are interested only in the key line, so we can use a period of 1 for the another line. And then we are interested in looking at the crossovers of the key line against a constant value, the overbought, and also with the oversold value. So we need to copy the line So we use the copy indicator, assign a name, for example key. On input series we select the indicator, stochastics, with the same parameters, and selecting the line key. I will use the same parameters. Both lines are equal, as we can see, and now we need the two constants, 20 and 80, for the overbought and oversold levels. We use the constant indicator, assign a value and a name, and on this example it will look better using a different panel over the stochastics, and another constant for the oversold with a value of 20 and a name of 20 on the second panel. So now we have all the lines, the key, the overbought level and oversold level. This is the MACD, the overbought and oversold. We can remove the MACD, the stochastics, because we have already the three needed values copied. And now we can use the crossover indicator to detect the crossovers. This will be a cross above the overbought and a cross below the oversold. For the case number 1, we use the crossover indicator between the lines key and 80. This was the name for the oversold, and for the name key versus 80. And I only interested in paint crossovers to the upside, so I disable the crossover to the downside. And here we have the signals. No crossover to the downside and another crossover to the upside. If now I want these signals, we use another crossover indicator between the key line and the oversold, which name is 20, and let's assign the name key versus 20. Only interested in looking crossover to the downside, so we disable the crossover to the upside. And now we have the short signals. Crossover to the upside, crossover to the downside. Another very good signal is when the market gets out from the overbought or oversold area. So these are the signals for that setup. When the market gets out from the overbought, and this when the market gets out from the oversold. For that we only need to switch the values of the signals. On the first crossover, instead of looking on this crossover, instead of looking crossover to the upside, we look crossover to the downside. And on the other crossover we also switch the values, and now we get this crossover and this crossover and this one. This setup is the reversal setup, much more useful for almost any market. And we have covered almost everything. Maybe we need to check the crossover by 0. Maybe one example will be using a MACD crossover. Let's remove everything and add a MACD. So let's say that we want to detect these crossovers by 0. For that we need to copy the MACD line and also create a constant at 0. So we use the copy, assign the name MACD to the indicator MACD, select the plot MACD, and now we assign the constant 0 and 0 as the name for the variable over the same panel. So we can put both lines together on panel number 3. And now we detect the crossovers on the same procedure. We use the crossover indicator between the MACD and the line with name 0, and the result may be anything, MACD versus 0 for example. We paint both crossovers to the upside and to the downside. We have a crossover, another, and another one. We can remove the MACD because it is no longer used, and here we can see the signals. On all the examples that we show, we can add thresholds. This is a good example to add a threshold, because on this example we can avoid painting these fake signals. We can look at the histogram and decide which is the best threshold. On this example the distance is 0.006. So if we use a threshold slightly over that value, then we can remove some of the fake signals. If we use 0.1, if the threshold is too big, then we don't have any signal. So we can make it 0.01, something like here. And now we can see that this signal is not on the first but on the second bar, because the first bar, the distance between the MACD and the 0 is 0.008, so it is below 0.01. So we have a delay on the signals, but we don't have fake signals like this one. With the threshold we can do that. We can filter fake signals with the cost of having some delay on the good signals. So we have covered all the possible cases of crossovers, and on the following video we can see more examples about slopes. Hope this video has been useful for you, and if you have any question, please post below this video. Thank you everyone, bye bye.